Introduction to three-dimensional geometry. Here in this session, we will be studying about the points in space and what is their peculiarity and how do we understand that particular point which is in a space. Okay. So till class 10th, we have learned 2D geometry, right? Those with only two axes, that is x-axis and the y-axis. Remember? So in class 10 you have learned about x-axis and y-axis, and you have learned about the different section formulas, distance formulas, midpoint formula. Everything that you have learned is with respect to 2D geometry. There is only two axes is there, that is x-axis and the y-axis. So you are only having a plane. What is a plane here? Here it is xy plane. Now when you talk about space, you cannot draw space with only two axes. You need to have a third axis. You cannot draw space inside this thing, right? So you need another one. So if I put this pen here, I'll get something towards the back side of this plane as well as the forward direction of this plane, which makes it a space, which makes it what? A space. So a space is always got by the third axis. And what is the third axis? You know that it is the z-axis. So what is the third axis here? It is nothing but the z-axis. So z-axis will make this 2D geometry into the new thing that you will study from this year onwards. That is nothing but the three-dimensional geometry. 3 dimensions, which includes the x coordinate, y coordinate and the z coordinate. Now, same like how what you have studied in class 10th, the 2D geometry is divided, or the coordinate plane is divided into 4 quadrants. First quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant and fourth quadrant. These are quadrants, right? So these are quadrants which our coordinate plane is getting divided by. So 4 quadrants are there. Now when it comes to our 3D geometry, it is not quadrant because you have a third axis. So when you have a third axis, that will divide this entire 2D geometry into 8 different parts. It will divide that into how many parts? 8 different parts. And these 8 different parts are called by the name, not quadrants, because it is 8. We call them by the name octants. How do we represent that? They are represented by the name octants. Understood? So what is an octant? It is nothing but the x, y and the z axis dividing the whole space into 8 equal parts. So that will be called by the name an octant. Clear? Understood? Now, how will you represent a point which is in space? How to represent a point which is in space? Now, for example, if I take this x-axis, this point on the x-axis can be taken as x0, 0 because the y coordinate and the z coordinate will also be 0. Now when I talk about z-axis, the point will be 0, 0, z, and for y-axis it will be 0, y, 0. So this will be the general formula for the point which is on the axis, x-axis, y-axis and the z-axis. Now what happens when it is on the space? What happens to a point which is on space? For example, if I take a point P here which is on space, then that P will be having x coordinate, y coordinate and the z coordinate. It will have values. It won't be 0 because it is not on any axis. So if it is not on any axis, it will have x coordinate, y coordinate and z coordinates which will be non-zero values. Understood? So that is how we find out the point which is in a space. So nothing but in coordinate plane, in 2D plane, we have only x, y, but when it comes to the space, we have the third coordinate along with that, which is named as x, y, comma, z. Clear? So understood what is an octant? An octant is just a part which the 3 axes divides the whole space into which 8 equal parts, and that one part is called by the name an octant. Now there are different octants, like how we have 4 quadrants, we have different octants. Let's look at that. So the octants and the coordinates I have denoted here. So please take a look at this. So you can see that the first octant where everything is positive, all 3 coordinates x, y and z are positive. Second coordinate x is negative, y and z are positive, and the third octant it will be first x and y negative and the third z coordinate will be positive. And for the fourth octant, x and z is positive and y is negative. And when it comes to the fifth one, x and y is positive and z is negative. And sixth octant, it is first, that is x and the z coordinate will be negative and the y coordinate will be positive. And where is all coordinates negative? In the 7th octant, not quadrant, octant. In the 7th octant, everything is negative. And in the 8th octant, x is positive and the remaining 2 are negative. You may not be able to remember all this individually, but remember where it is all positive in the first octant. In the first octant, all the coordinates are positive, right? So all coordinates are positive. And where it is negative, remember that also, that is in the 7th octant. So the 7th octant, all coordinates are negative also. So positive, all positive in the first octant, all negative in the 7th octant. Understood? So this is how we represent a point in space. A point in space can be represented by x comma y comma z, the third coordinate. So along with x and y, you will have a third coordinate z. Clear? So that is about the introduction in 3D geometry. Until we meet in the next session, have a good day.
Manorama Horizon. Learning made simple.